Welcome in, everyone. Get ready for a deep dive, and trust me, this one's a big one. We're tackling the Sistine Chapel today.
Talk about iconic, right?
You said it!
Mm.
And you guys sent in some great stuff. The Wikipedia page alone, wow. So we're going way beyond just the basics today. Think hidden details, juicy stories.
Oh yeah, we're talking papal power struggles, Renaissance drama.
And enough art to make your head spin.
It's all there, woven right into the walls.
Okay, so the Sistine Chapel. Most people, they think Michelangelo's ceiling, right?
Of course, it's hard to miss. But here's the thing. The chapel, it wasn't built to be an artist's playground.
Right.
It was, and still is, the Pope's own private chapel.
Fancy.
You bet. This is where the big gatherings of the church happen, important services, and get this, electing new popes.
Wait, in the Sistine Chapel, like with all the art?
Oh yeah. Talk about pressure, right? Centuries of tradition, cardinals locked in, sworn to secrecy. Can you imagine the weight of the world on their shoulders?
And then, after all that, the smoke signals. White smoke, new pope, black smoke. Well, you know the rest.
Exactly. It's enough to give you chills thinking about all that history unfolding under those frescoes.
No kidding. But okay, before we get lost in papal drama, let's rewind a bit. The Sistine Chapel itself, this is the 1400s, right?
That's right. Pope Sixtus V, hence the name. And here's where it gets really interesting. Decades before Michelangelo even picked up a brush, Sixtus brought in a whole other group of artists to decorate the walls.
Oh, wow. So it was already a pretty impressive space.
Oh, absolutely. We're talking Botticelli, Perugino, Rosselli, the rock stars of their day.
So Sixtus was a bit of a showman then. Like, look at me. I've got the best artists on speed dial.
Well, let's just say he knew how to make a statement. It was a power move, for sure, showing off the church's wealth and all that. But there was more to it than just that.
Oh, like what?
Sixtus, he wanted to smooth things over with the Medici family from Florence. Powerful folks, huge patrons of the arts. And these artists we're talking about, well, they were connected to the Medicis.
Ah, so it was strategic.
Jerry, a way to gain some allies, forge a powerful connection. It's amazing how much history is woven into every brushstroke, isn't it?
It really is. So what about those pre-Michelangelo masterpieces? What were they all about?
Well, the walls tell stories, primarily of Moses and Jesus, and they're positioned very deliberately side by side.
To make a point.
Exactly. It's all about connecting the Old Testament to the New Testament, the lineage of faith, the fulfillment of prophecy, all that good stuff.
A visual conversation across centuries.
You got it. And just imagine, above all of that, they originally had this incredible gallery of popes painted up there.
Whoa, like a family portrait of all the popes.
Pretty much. Reinforcing their authority, leading right to the altar.
Yeah.
Of course, directly below what would eventually become Michelangelo's masterpiece.
Talk about a power statement. Okay, so speaking of Michelangelo, is it true that painting the Sistine Chapel ceiling wasn't even the original plan?
That's right. Can you imagine? He was supposed to paint the 12 apostles. That's it. But somehow he convinced the Pope, Julius II at the time, to let him tackle something a little bigger.
A little bigger. We're talking about the entire book of Genesis here.
Exactly. And the scale of it is just mind-blowing. Over 5,000 square feet of fresco, all painted while he was standing on scaffolding.
Wait, standing? I always heard he was on his back.
Nope. Common misconception. It took him 4 years, 1508 to 1512, just dedicated to this one incredible project. And the detail, it's remarkable, especially after they restored it.
Oh, you mean the restoration that caused all that controversy?
The one and only. Finished in 1994, they brought back the colors. And let me tell you, Michelangelo, he used some bold choices. It was like seeing the frescoes for the first time, that vibrancy.
But some people, they thought it was too much, right?
Oh yeah, too bright, not how Michelangelo intended. It was a huge debate, still is actually. Artistic intent versus the effects of time, you know.
It's fascinating, isn't it? How we experience art, how our expectations play into it all.
Totally. And that's just the beginning. We haven't even touched on the Last Judgment yet. And we're just getting started with the ceiling. We've got those incredible wall frescoes to dig into. Remember those scenes with Moses and Jesus we were talking about?
Yeah, they weren't just like randomly placed, right?
They're side by side for a reason.
To tell a story.
To spark a conversation, almost, between the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Ah, yeah.
Like on the south wall, you've got Botticelli's Trials of Moses, all these different scenes from Moses' life.
Busy guy.
And then right across from that, on the north wall, there's Ghirlandaio's Vocation of the Apostles, Jesus calling his disciples.
So it's both about leadership, right, answering a higher calling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Centuries apart, but connected by this idea of faith, destiny. And that visual conversation, it continues throughout the whole chapel.
Man, the photos online are one thing, but being there in person, surrounded by it all.
It's a completely different experience. The scale, the colors.
Yeah.
You're not just looking at paintings, you're immersed in them.
Speaking of being immersed, can you imagine what it must be like to witness a papal conclave in there?
To be one of those cardinals, locked away, making this huge decision.
With all that art looking down on you.
Talk about pressure. Centuries of tradition, the weight of history, all those eyes watching.
And above them, those frescoes, creation, judgment, a reminder that you're playing with some pretty big themes.
No kidding. It's almost like the art itself is part of the drama, you know. And then finally, after all that deliberation, the smoke.
White smoke, new pope. It's such a big deal, even now.
It's a powerful image, this tiny little puff of smoke signifying a new era.
But while those conclaves are super secret, thankfully, the art's not.
True, true. Speaking of which, we haven't even talked about those arched areas above the windows, the lunettes, I think they're called.
Ah, yes. Easy to overlook, but Michelangelo, he didn't waste an inch of space. He filled those lunettes with these incredible portraits, the ancestors of Christ.
Like Abraham, King David, all those biblical big shots.
Exactly. Tracing Jesus's family tree, his human lineage. It's amazing how much detail he packed in. Every little bit tells a story.
And it all ties together, you see. By showing Christ's human ancestors, he's emphasizing that idea of the incarnation, God becoming human.
Right, right.
Even with all the grandeur, the creation story, the message is ultimately about our connection to the divine.
It's like this incredible tapestry of stories, you know, one on top of the other.
It's really something else. And then there's the ceiling itself.
It's hard to imagine just the scale of it, even from the pictures.
You really can't. Those vibrant colors, those figures practically bursting out of the ceiling.
It's no wonder people call it one of the greatest artworks ever, you know?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's more than just beauty. It's the story he's telling.
Right, right. So what was Michelangelo going for? What's the message behind it all?
Big questions. We're talking about God, creation, humanity, the whole shebang. It's his take on the book of Genesis, but with this incredible drama.
He's making it come alive, almost.
Exactly. You can practically feel the energy, you know. Look at those diagonals he uses, like in the creation of Adam.
Right, where God's reaching out to touch Adam's finger.
Exactly. Or the expulsion from the garden, Noah and the flood. It's like each line pulls your eye across the ceiling.
Creating this flow, this energy.
Exactly. Divine power in action. And of course, we can't forget the nudes.
Right. Still kind of shocking, even now. All those naked bodies. In the Pope's private chapel.
Oh, it caused quite a stir back then, let me tell you. Don't forget, this was a time of huge upheaval. The Reformation was kicking off.
The church was feeling the pressure.
Exactly. So Michelangelo, he was pushing boundaries. But I think for him, it was more than that. The nude form, it represented something pure, you know.
God's creation.
Exactly. The human form, how we were made. Of course, not everyone saw it that way, hence the whole fig leaf campaign.
Trying to cover things up.
Yep. And then, of course, there's the Last Judgment.
Whoa, boy, that's a whole other level of intense.
No kidding. It's raw, it's powerful, it's Michelangelo at his most, well, Michelangelo. Judgment, damnation. He doesn't hold back.
Amazing. And the thing is, even with all the drama, the controversy, it's still there.
Enduring.
People still flock to see it, you know? It's like art, it transcends all that.
It really does. The Sistine Chapel, it's this incredible blend of art and faith, beauty and power. That's a lot to take in.
Well said. That was our deep dive, everyone. The Sistine Chapel. From secret papal conclaves to artistic showdowns to those incredible frescoes. What a ride.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore. The symbolism, the technique.
So much history. But that's the beauty of a deep dive, right? It's just the beginning. So to our listeners, we leave you with this. Imagine you're standing there in the Sistine Chapel. What grabs your attention? What questions are running through your mind?
Let the exploration continue.
Until our next deep dive, happy exploring.
Okay, so you want to understand Havana syndrome?
Oh, yeah.
Buckle up, because we're diving into a real head scratcher.
Yeah.
We've got excerpts from the Wikipedia article on Havana syndrome.
Okay.
And then a bunch of investigative reports and scientific analyses. It's a lot to untangle.
Right.
But but that's what we're here for, right?
Absolutely. And what's so captivating about this case is how it intersects with so many different areas.
Yeah.
International relations, espionage, technology, even medicine. It's like a puzzle box where every layer we peel back reveals another enigma.
Yeah, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
What exactly are we even talking about when we say Havana syndrome?
So imagine this. You're going about your day, maybe walking down a street or sitting in your office,
Yeah.
when suddenly you're hit with a wave of debilitating symptoms.
Oh, wow.
Dizziness, nausea, intense pressure in your head, ringing in your ears.
Real.
Some people describe hearing a piercing sound right before it hits,
Okay.
like a high-pitched whine or buzzing. It's disorienting, painful, and incredibly frightening.
Wow.
That, in essence, is the experience reported by hundreds of diplomats, intelligence officials, and military personnel starting back in 2016.
And these incidents, if we're calling them that, these were primarily concentrated in Havana, Cuba, hence the name.
Initially, yes.
Right.
The first cases were reported by American and Canadian diplomats stationed in Havana,
Right.
which is what brought it to international attention.
Right.
But soon, similar cases began popping up in other parts of the world: China, Russia, even Washington, D.C.
Really?
This global spread is one of the things that makes Havana syndrome so perplexing.
So it's like something out of a spy novel, right? This mysterious illness targeting diplomats around the globe.
Right.
I can see why people immediately jump to conclusions about, sonic weapons and covert attacks and...
It certainly fueled a lot of speculation.
Yeah.
And, there are historical precedents that have added fuel to the fire.
Like what?
Remember the Moscow signal? Back during the Cold War, the U.S. Embassy in Moscow was targeted with microwave radiation, which some believe was an attempt to disrupt operations or even cause harm. When the first reports of Havana syndrome emerged, with descriptions of strange sounds and debilitating symptoms,
Right.
it's easy to see why people drew parallels.
Yeah. So was it microwaves?
Oh.
Did those investigations ever confirm that theory?
That's where things get complicated.
All right.
Multiple investigations were launched by agencies like the FBI, the CIA, and even the CDC.
Wow. So many different cooks in the kitchen.
You had all these different groups looking into the same phenomenon,
Yeah.
but with different priorities and perhaps even different levels of access to information.
Right.
This lack of coordination definitely hindered the investigations early on.
And adding to the complexity, we're talking about potential attacks on diplomats and intelligence officials. That's sensitive territory.
Absolutely, and that secrecy surrounding intelligence gathering makes it even harder to separate fact from speculation.
Right.
Some experts, even within the intelligence community itself,
Okay.
initially suggested that the cause might be psychogenic,
What does that mean?
meaning it originated in the mind rather than from a physical source.
Oh, interesting.
They pointed to the stress of being stationed overseas,
Sure.
the demanding nature of diplomatic work, and the possibility of mass hysteria.
So basically they were saying it was all in their heads.
In a way, yes.
I can imagine that didn't go over well with the people experiencing these very real and debilitating symptoms.
It was certainly met with a lot of pushback.
Yeah.
Remember, these weren't just fleeting sensations.
Right.
Many individuals reported suffering from long-term effects, chronic headaches, vertigo, cognitive difficulties, even permanent hearing loss.
Oh, wow.
To be told that it was possibly psychosomatic, a result of stress or anxiety, was incredibly frustrating and, frankly, insulting to many of those affected.
Yeah, it seems like a classic example of dismissing something we don't understand as like, oh, it's all in your head.
It really does.
But if it wasn't, a psychological phenomenon,
Right.
what were investigators finding? Was there any evidence to support the microwave theory?
In 2020, the National Academies of Sciences released a report that seemed to lend some credibility to the microwave theory.
Right.
They analyzed the symptoms reported by over 400 individuals.
Wow.
And concluded that directed pulsed radio frequency energy, which includes microwaves,
Right.
was the most plausible mechanism to explain at least some of the cases.
So they finally had their smoking gun.
Not so fast.
Okay.
While that report did represent a significant development, it wasn't without its critics.
Okay, so unpack that for me.
Okay.
What were the arguments against the microwave theory?
Many scientists argued that the report lacked conclusive evidence,
Okay.
directly linking the symptoms to pulsed radio frequency energy.
Right. It relied heavily on circumstantial evidence.
Okay.
And the elimination of other plausible causes.
So basically, it was a case of well, we don't know what else it could be, so it must be this.
To some extent, yes.
Yes.
And there were other issues.
Like what?
Critics argued that the technology required to create a microwave weapon capable of causing the specific DIRO.
Right.
Localized symptoms reported in many Havana syndrome cases would be incredibly sophisticated, perhaps even beyond our current capabilities.
Really?
There were also questions about the plausibility of such a device being used in densely populated areas without detection.
Right, because, like, someone would notice. Right.
Exactly.
So you have this back and forth between those who believe, okay, directed energy is the most likely culprit.
Right.
And others who, remain unconvinced by that.
Right.
Where did that leave the investigations?
The debate continued for several years.
Okay.
Then, in 2022 and 2023, both the CIA and a panel of 7 intelligence agencies
released separate reports that seemed to throw cold water on the entire idea of a foreign attack.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
After all that, they were essentially back to square one.
In a way, yes.
Wow.
Both reports concluded that most, if not all, Havana syndrome cases could be attributed to other factors.
Like what?
Ranging from pre-existing medical conditions to environmental factors, even stress.
It's hard to imagine something as, I don't know, mundane as stress.
Right.
Causing such severe and debilitating symptoms.
Sure.
It feels almost dismissive, I imagine, of the experiences of those affected, to say that, oh, it was just stress.
It's crucial to remember that these investigations were primarily focused on determining the cause of the incidents and whether a foreign adversary was responsible.
Right.
The suffering of those experiencing the symptoms was, unfortunately, not the primary focus of these particular reports.
Because you can see how that would be perceived as insensitive, right?
Yeah. I can see that, yeah.
It's like saying, well, we can't find any evidence of an attack.
Yeah.
So you must just be imagining it.
Right.
Right.
It highlights a real disconnect between the world of intelligence gathering, which often prioritizes national security concerns, and the very human impact of events like these.
Right, and trying to reconcile those two is difficult.
It's very difficult.
So were these reports the final word on Havana syndrome? Was the case closed?
For a while, it seemed that way.
Okay.
Then, in late 2024, a joint investigative report by the Insider, 60 Minutes, and Der Spiegel
big names,
brought the case roaring back into the spotlight.
Here's where we get back to that spy novel scenario, right?
It's like it.
What did they uncover?
This investigation presented compelling evidence, suggesting that a specific unit within the GRU,
and that's
Russia's military intelligence agency, might be involved after all.
So remember all that talk about the Moscow signal and potential microwave attacks?
Right.
It seems like those early suspicions might not have been so far-fetched after all.
It does seem that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So they linked this GRU unit to what was it? What did they call it?
The report specifically linked this GRU unit, known as Unit 29155, to the development and deployment of non-lethal acoustic weapons.
Okay, now that's just unsettling.
Yeah.
But what exactly are we talking about when we say non-lethal acoustic weapons?
I know, it sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, right?
It does, yeah.
But the basic idea is that these weapons use sound waves. Often at frequencies outside the range of human hearing to cause a range of effects.
So instead of bullets or bombs, we're talking about weapons that use sound as their ammunition.
In a way, yes.
And what kind of effects are we talking about?
It can vary.
Okay.
Depending on the frequency and intensity of the sound waves. But some common effects include pain, nausea, dizziness, disorientation, even hearing loss.
Wow.
The idea is to incapacitate or disrupt an individual without causing permanent injury. Hence the term non-lethal.
But from what we've learned about Havana syndrome, some of these individuals did experience long-term health issues.
Right.
Doesn't that contradict the non-lethal label?
That's a very important point.
Yeah.
The term non-lethal is often misunderstood. While these weapons aren't designed to be fatal, it doesn't mean they can't cause serious, long-lasting harm. The long-term effects of exposure to certain frequencies are still being studied. And it's entirely possible that what's considered non-lethal today could have unforeseen consequences down the line.
So this report, linking a Russian military unit to acoustic weapons and their movements to Havana syndrome incidents, reignites the whole debate about a potential foreign attack.
It does.
What's been the reaction to this new information?
It's been significant.
Okay.
Several U.S. senators,
Mm-hmm.
including some who had previously been skeptical of the foreign attack theory,
Oh, wow.
have called for a renewed investigation.
Hooray.
They're demanding a more coordinated effort
Okay.
between intelligence agencies to thoroughly examine this new evidence
Mm-hmm.
and determine the extent of Russia's involvement, if any.
It sounds like we've gone full circle
Yeah.
from those initial reports in Havana
Right.
to investigations that seem to rule out a foreign adversary, and now back to Russia as a potential suspect.
Yeah,
It's enough to make your head spin.
it really is.
And what about the individuals who have been experiencing these symptoms?
Right.
Some for many years now.
Yeah.
Where does this latest development leave them?
One significant outcome is the increased awareness
Okay.
this new report has brought to their plight. The fact that several high-profile news organizations collaborated on this investigation
Yeah.
has brought renewed attention to Havana syndrome, which in turn has put pressure on the government to take the matter seriously
Okay.
and provide adequate care for those affected.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's good to know that their experiences are finally being acknowledged
Right.
and that there's a push for accountability.
Yeah,
This entire situation, though, still feels incredibly unsettling.
it is. Yeah.
We started this deep dive hoping to separate fact from fiction,
Right.
and it seems like we've just scratched the surface of something far more complex.
What's fascinating about Havana syndrome is that it transcends a simple medical mystery
Yeah.
or even an espionage thriller, you know?
Right.
It forces us to confront the limitations of our own understanding.
Okay.
We're talking about potential technologies that exist on the fringes of what we currently believe is possible.
You're saying there's a chance we're dealing with something so advanced.
It's possible.
So beyond our current grasp of science and technology,
Yeah.
that it seems almost like science fiction.
Consider this.
Okay.
The world of intelligence gathering is shrouded in secrecy.
Right.
It's not unreasonable to imagine that advancements in areas like directed energy,
Okay.
acoustic weapons, even neuroweapons,
Oh.
are happening at a pace we're not even privy to.
So what you're suggesting is that Havana syndrome,
Yeah.
regardless of its ultimate cause,
Right.
could be a glimpse into a future
Possibly.
where the lines between science fiction and reality become increasingly blurred.
Precisely.
Wow.
And that, I believe, is the most significant takeaway from all of this.
Okay.
It's not just about finding a definitive answer to what caused Havana syndrome.
Right.
It's about expanding our awareness of the unknown,
Yeah.
questioning our assumptions about what's possible,
Yeah.
and acknowledging that the world is full of mysteries we may never fully comprehend.
Wow.
Perhaps that's what makes it so captivating.
Yeah. So even without a clear resolution,
Right.
this deep dive has been a real eye-opener for me. It makes you wonder what else is out there, right?
It does.
Even in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered.
And maybe that's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
Something to think about.
Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive. Today we're tackling something truly mind-blowing. TON 618, a quasar that's so bright and massive, it's record-breaking to say the least.
Yeah, it kind of rewrites what we thought was possible. You know?
Yeah.
We've got some great Wikipedia excerpts on this. Perfect place to start, actually, because TON 618 has this amazing discovery story.
Oh, I love those. The ones where, like, you stumble onto something incredible by accident.
Exactly. Picture this, 1957, right? Astronomers in Mexico, they're using this, well, pretty small telescope by today's standards. They're surveying the sky, looking for these faint blue stars, and they spot this point of light that's a bit more violet than the others. They note that down. It gets cataloged. Just becomes entry number 618 in their survey. No idea what they just found.
So back then, nobody even knew what a quasar was.
Nope, not a clue. It took over a decade. 1970 rolls around, and radio astronomers, they pick up these weird signals coming right from TON 618's location. They take a closer look, and boom. It's not a star, not in the usual sense. It's a quasar, one of the most energetic things out there. And we now know they're powered by, well, you guessed it, supermassive black holes.
Okay, so let's talk about that black hole. the Wikipedia article, it says this thing is 40.7 billion times the mass of our sun. Like, how do you even comprehend a number that big?
Honestly, you can't, really. It defies imagination. But try this. Our entire solar system, everything, planets, asteroids, the whole shebang, it could fit inside this black hole.
Whoa. That's just, I mean, how do scientists even measure the mass of something we can't even see directly?
It's all about the motion. The stuff swirling around the black hole, we call it the accretion disk.
Like water going down a drain.
Perfect analogy. Now imagine that water is glowing crazy bright because it's superheated. All from the friction and the black hole's insane gravity.
Okay, I'm kind of getting the picture now.
Good. So this glowing stuff, it's whipping around the black hole at ridiculous speeds.
Yeah.
And the light it gives off, that gets stretched, compressed, like when a siren changes pitch as it passes you. It's called the Doppler effect.
Right. From physics class. So by looking at how the light changes, scientists can figure out how fast that stuff's spinning. And that tells them how massive the black hole must be to cause that kind of spin.
Exactly. Cosmic detective work at its finest. And for TON 618, the evidence points to a black hole that's, well, colossal doesn't even cut it. So
Yeah.
massive. Some scientists think it might be a whole new category. We're talking ultramassive black holes.
Ultramassive. Now that sounds intimidating. What makes them different from the regular supermassive ones?
Think of it like this. If a supermassive black hole is a lion, an ultramassive one is a T-Rex. They just dwarf even the biggest ones we've found. And their impact on their galaxies is immense. And TON 618, well, it could be one of the first ultramassive black holes we've ever found.
So it's not just big, it might be a whole new breed of giant. This deep dive just got even more interesting. What else is special about TNM 618? Why is it so significant to astronomers?
Well, besides that record-breaking black hole, there's this massive cloud of glowing gas around it. It's called a Lyman Alpha Nebula.
Now, remind me what a Lyman Alpha Nebula is again.
Imagine a giant cloud of hydrogen gas spreading out over hundreds of thousands of light years.
So bigger than our whole galaxy.
Way bigger, actually. And this gas is energized by the radiation pouring out of the quasar at TON 618 center, like a giant cosmic spotlight shining on a fog bank.
Wow, that must be a sight. Wait, if it's that big and getting hit with all that radiation, shouldn't it be incredibly hot?
You'd think, right. But this is what's so weird about TON 618's Lyman Alpha Nebula. The gas is actually relatively cool. Scientists are still trying to figure that one out. Means there's something counteracting all that heat from the quasar.
A cosmic mystery, huh?
Absolutely. And solving it could tell us so much about how these monster black holes and their galaxies grow and change over billions of years.
Yeah. Every new fact about TON 618 just makes it more fascinating. But before we really get into that Lyman Alpha Nebula, can we just take a second to appreciate that all of this was discovered by pure chance?
It really shows you how much is still out there, waiting to be found. The universe is full of surprises.
It makes you wonder, what else is lurking out there just waiting for us to stumble upon it?
That's what makes astronomy so exciting. There's always something new to learn, some new mystery to unravel.
Well, I'm definitely hooked on this mystery. Can't wait to dive into that Lyman Alpha Nebula and see what secrets it holds. Okay, so TON 618, right? Giant black hole, practically unimaginable in size. And it's got this huge cloud of cool hydrogen gas around it, that Lyman Alpha Nebula. What I want to know is, what does that nebula tell us about quasars and their galaxies? How are they connected?
Oh, that's a good question. It's a big one for astronomers. See, quasars, especially the crazy bright ones like TON 618, we think they're like major players in how galaxies evolve. It's a period of intense activity, the black holes gobbling up matter, blasting out energy like crazy.
So it's like a galactic growth spurt, fueled by this monster in the middle.
Exactly. And that energy, it's not just a light show. It does stuff to the whole galaxy. Heats up gas, might even kickstart new stars forming, and it can blow material away, like shaping the galaxy's whole structure.
So by looking at TON 618 and that nebula, it's like we're seeing, the early universe? Like how these powerful forces made galaxies into what we see today.
Precisely. We're peering back in time to when the universe was younger, a lot wilder. And that Lyman Alpha Nebula, it's a window into that era.
Right. Okay, so the nebula glows because of the quasar's energy. We got that. But you said the gas is, surprisingly cool. How does that even work with all that radiation hitting it?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Astronomers are still working on that one. One idea is there might be these streams of cool gas flowing in from, the space between galaxies, the intergalactic medium. It's kind of replenishing the nebula, fighting that heat from the quasar.
So a cosmic tug of war. Quasar's heating it up, but cool gas keeps flowing in, keeps things balanced.
It's definitely dynamic, that's for sure.
Mm.
And seeing cool gas there tells us, well, there's more going on than we fully grasp. Complex processes.
The more we learn about TON 618, the more questions pop up. It's like that, isn't it?
That's science, right?
Mm.
Every answer leads to more questions, and it keeps us digging deeper.
Okay, well, digging deeper, the Wikipedia article calls TON 618 a broad absorption line quasar. What's that all about? What makes that significant?
Yeah. It's all about the light. When we look at light from faraway objects like quasars, we can break it down and see these distinct lines in their spectra, like fingerprints. Tell us what the object's made of and what's going on there.
So each quasar has its own unique, light signature.
Exactly. Now, TON 618, besides the bright lines we usually see in quasars, it's got these broad, dark lines too. Absorption lines, we call them.
Dark lines, what do those mean?
Those tell us there's a lot of gas and dust moving outward from the quasar and fast, like incredibly fast. Think of it as powerful winds blowing out from the quasar.
So it's not just shining, it's like spewing stuff out, too. Intense.
It is. And these outflows, these quasar winds, they can be incredibly powerful. They can actually affect how stars form in the galaxy, even change how the whole galaxy evolves.
Whoa. Okay, so TON 618 is this powerhouse. It's shaping its whole neighborhood, not just with its light, but with these winds, too.
You got it. And by studying these outflows, we learn how that quasar energy gets transferred to the galaxy, how it affects the galaxy's growth and evolution.
Okay, so we've got the massive black hole, the giant cool gas cloud, and these powerful winds. Anything else about TON 618 that makes it stand out? From other quasars, I mean.
Well, one thing that really makes TON 618 special is its luminosity, just how bright it is. We're talking one of the brightest objects in the known universe.
Luminosity, that's just a fancy word for bright, right?
It means how much energy it's pumping out. TON 618 shines with the light of 140 trillion suns.
140 trillion suns. That's I can't even. And we see this thing from billions of light years away.
It's a testament to the sheer power of quasars. Even across those vast distances, their light can reach us. And tell us about the early universe.
It's kind of humbling, isn't it? This object, so far away, so powerful, it's been shining for billions of years, giving us a glimpse into the universe's past.
Definitely puts things in perspective. Our sun seems so important to us, but compared to the power of TON 618, it's just a tiny speck.
Makes you wonder, what else is out there, right? What other incredible things are just waiting to be discovered? What other secrets the universe is hiding?
And that's what keeps us going. The universe is full of mysteries, and with every new discovery, we get a little bit closer to understanding our place in it all.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to keep exploring. TON 618 has really sparked my imagination. It's wild, right? Something so far away we can't even see it without super-powered telescopes. And it's shining with the strength of, well, we just talked about how many suns. It's crazy. Makes you think, what else don't we know about out there?
Yeah, and that light we're seeing from TON 618, it's been traveling for billions of years to get here. We're looking back in time, seeing the universe when it was a baby, basically. Way more active than it is now.
Right. We keep talking about this quasar, the black hole, the nebula, like they're frozen. But what we're observing, it all happened billions of years ago.
It really messes with your head, doesn't it? That light started traveling towards us long before our sun, our planet even existed.
Makes you wonder, what's TON 618 doing now? Is the black hole even bigger? Has the nebula, changed shape?
Well, we can only guess, right?
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun, I think. Trying to figure out this cosmic puzzle, using the clues we have, the light that reaches us, to understand what happened billions of years in the past.
Like cosmic archaeologists, yeah. Digging through layers of time and space.
I like that. And every new discovery, every bit of data it adds to the picture, helps us understand how the universe became what we see today.
Okay, so wrapping up our TON 618 deep dive, what's the big takeaway? What do you want our listeners to remember?
I think the main thing is TON 618 isn't just some weird, unique thing,
Yeah.
It's showing us a really important stage in how galaxies form. Back when the universe was young and, well, energetic is an understatement.
So by looking at TON 618, we're learning about the early universe and about how our own galaxy, the Milky Way, came to be.
Exactly. Helps us see where we fit into the grand scheme of things. Reminds us we're part of something ancient, something that's always changing.
Well put. I gotta say, I started this deep dive just curious, but now I'm ending it with a sense of awe. Wow.
That's astronomy for you. Widens your perspective. Makes you realize how much we still have to learn about the universe, about our place in it all.
A huge thank you to our expert for taking us on this journey to TON 618. And to our listeners, keep looking up, keep exploring, and never stop being curious about the amazing universe we call home.